Awesome. This place is so fancy. This is like, I'm so glad I dressed up. Although I gotta admit that I did spill some stuff on my sleeve. So if you cameras want to zoom in on that, I'm just gonna take down the level of class that is at this prestigious institution. So guys, I was really excited to kind of come here. This was perfect timing for me. I've been in the process of kind of just trying to process the last 5 years of my life and turn it into a book. And to give you, I don't know how many of you are familiar, actually show of hands, how many of you are familiar with Postmodern Jukebox? Okay, all right, well that makes my job a lot easier then. Okay, great, awesome, so I'm not starting from zero. So really what it boils down to for me in the subject of my book is that I'm somebody that actually got to take what they're passionate about and make a career out of it, and also kind of birth something that became bigger than me. It's become this worldwide movement that has been so exciting to be a part of, and it's been so rewarding to work on. So I want to kind of give you the story of how I made this happen. I didn't come from any kind of connections. I didn't come from a major label or anything like that. This was all very grassroots. And my hope is that all of you guys, if you guys are doing a creative endeavor or something that is important to you, that means a lot to you, that you can find the tools that we have out there, and thanks to social media, and just make stuff happen. So I'm going to give you kind of a little bit of the Cliff Notes story of my life. Okay. I started taking piano lessons when I was about 9 years old, and I did not like it at all. It wasn't for me. I had a classical teacher. She was very strict with things. I had to do scales, and I just wasn't practicing. I wanted to do anything else. I wanted to go outside or whatever, anything else but practice. So my teacher actually told my parents, he's not into this, just forget it. I think that he should not take piano lessons because it's wasting everybody's time. And I think that also I was just kind of a rebellious kid, and maybe that's why as soon as that happened, I suddenly got really interested in the piano. And it happened because I heard a piece of music called Rhapsody in Blue. And Rhapsody in Blue, that's that piece that, if you heard it, that one, it's a George Gershwin piece. And what was cool about it is it had a mix of classical music, but then it had all this other stuff that I heard that I didn't realize at the time, but later found out was jazz. And to give you kind of an example of the differences between classical music and jazz, like if you were a classical pianist, you would take a Mozart song and you would play it like this. But if you were a jazz piano player, you would play it like this. So that sounded so exciting to me, like that kind of sound. And I was like, what is this music? This is amazing. And I was about 13 years old. And I just remember hearing that sound and realizing this is it. This is finally like a piano style that I could relate to. It was just brash, it was fun. It didn't seem like it was too regimented or anything. And I went on kind of like a quest to learn how to play it. And at this time, I was growing up in a small town in New Jersey. A very far away land called New Jersey, across the pond. And as a result, we had a library, and there was a bunch of like jazz CDs and tapes there, but there wasn't much sheet music. So what I did was take out these CDs at the library, and I would put like a CD player or even a cassette player. This was back in the 90s. So we had cassette players. I was like listening to it, I would play it, and then I would try to figure out on the piano, be like, wait, what does this note? What does this chord do? And I started to, understand that there was a relationship between chords and certain sounds that I like to make. Like I got to hear like what a blue note was. And a blue note, if any of you guys are musicians, it's this kind of sound. It's kind of like between notes. And that's something that was so unique to jazz and blues that I realized that there was some stuff that you couldn't even really notate. So that was kind of the way that I learned, was just by listening, imitating stuff, and then when I felt more comfortable, just kind of improvising. And improvising just means just taking something and making something out of it. Just taking a melody and playing around with it, turning it upside down, twisted, whatever. And that's how I learned how to play jazz. So that was around this time. I was doing a lot of jazz, just playing piano and everything, and I was about maybe like 15, 16 years old. And of course, my friends were not really into jazz. I was in a small town. They liked pop music. They liked what was ever on the radio. They liked bands like Sublime and Red Hot Chili Peppers, you know, great bands. And a lot of gangster rap, Notorious B.I.G., stuff like that. So I realized that, you know, I wasn't going to get them to like my kind of music if I just played them these old recordings that sounded like they were recorded like through like a freaking tin can. So I would take their songs and kind of, you know, make them into jazz. Let me see if I can do an example, just to... We're going to try to use some technology here. We'll see if this works. So, actually, you know what? I'll say that. But, you know, I would take a song. There's a Notorious B.I.G. song called Big Papa that has like a instrumental that goes, you know. So I played it, a jazz version for my friends, you know. And they recognized it right away, even though they couldn't quite put their finger on it. They're like, they don't know why it sounded different, but they're like, hey, you're playing Big Papa, but it's jazz. And that was the first time that I did that, and that I kind of became aware of what I now call the postmodern jukebox effect. It's taking something that is so familiar, something that you know that it's like right there, easy to access in your memory, but you're hearing it in an unfamiliar way, which kind of gives it takes a second to kind of understand what is actually happening. And it feels good when you actually recognize what the song is. Let me just give another example. I'm just going to play something. First one to name what this song is, what the original song is, gets some kind of prize. I don't know. All right? I just made that up. There's totally no prize. But here we go. Ready? Careless Whisper? Yeah. Who said Careless Whisper? Yeah, okay, you were quick. That was great. You win the non-existent prize. Congratulations. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's another example of just, you know, taking a song, putting it, that was almost like a 1920s type of thing. So fast forward, I went to school for music. I went to college. I did kind of what everybody was doing, going to college, because I wasn't a very good student in high school. I didn't really like high school. I wasn't really into anything except for music. So I think I had the school record for lates to class in high school. So I didn't really have many options when it came to college anyway. So I went to school. It was music school. And what I found to be the value of school, in honesty, was just being connected to a lot of talented people and getting to learn from them and getting to kind of network with them. And I experimented with a lot of different genres of music and trying different projects and, you know, original bands. I think I remember my first gig. Oh, my first gig was it was at like a dive bar in Connecticut, and there was about 10 people there, and none of them were listening. Nobody was listening. It was very demoralizing. And I remember saying, I wonder if I take my pants off if people will still not listen. And I took my pants off, and we did a song, and I had no pants on. And nobody listened still, nobody paid attention. So there we go. So that was like kind of a taste of what the real world is like for a musician. And I think that that was important to me, because I went from being in high school, everybody talked about, oh, you know, Scott knows music, he's like an amazing musician and all this stuff. But then you get into college and you get into the real world after college, and you realize that that's not enough, like nobody cares. There's so many great musicians, so many talented people doing extraordinary things. Just posing for the camera right there. There we go. Thank you. So a lot of people doing cool stuff. I moved to New York City, and that's kind of a natural thing for, I'm just going to stand up so you guys can see. It was a natural thing for me. After I went to school, I wanted to be in New York City. That's the place that I dreamed of living when I was a kid. I would go there when I was about 17 years old, and I would go into jazz clubs, hear amazing music. You know, me and my friends would go, and we'd be able to like drink. You had to, you know, you had to be 21 to drink in the rest of the country, but New York City back then, they were pretty lax. So it was like this amazing place, and I'd always dreamed of living there. So I did it, and I just packed all my stuff up after school, moved to New York City, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna be a jazz pianist. And I found no work. It was impossible. I was doing everything that my teachers told me to do. I was making little demo CDs of me playing jazz songs and going to restaurants and banquets, and I was like advertising on Craigslist. you know, and you meet some weird people on Craigslist. But I was trying everything to try to make this happen for myself, and it was a pretty kind of like a low point in my life, because I was being confronted with this fact that I couldn't make a living as a musician, and music was what I put everything into, you know, from childhood on. All it was music. So I realized that I had to try to do something. I wasn't going to just give up. I wasn't going to get like a real job. So I decided to try to just experiment and do something different. And around this time, I saw that a lot of people were having success on YouTube. A lot of people were doing crazy stuff on YouTube, and a lot of just different viral videos that were crossing my newsfeed. And I just thought, well, you know, there was this thing that I used to do, which was play songs and turn them into different genres of music. Why don't I try this on YouTube? So I did one day, and this is a video. This is the very first video that I made on YouTube. And it was recorded in my small, like, awful apartment in New York City, which didn't really have much, except it was just a big space. So I had a keyboard, I set up a camera, and I did this, just with a cheap camcorder. I had pretty crazy hair back then, too. Goes on, but you can kind of get the idea. It was taking a medley of classic 80s songs. That was Come On Eileen, Don't You Want Me Baby, did some Bon Jovi, did some Rick Astley, because why not, you know? Who else is never gonna give you up, you know? So I did this whole medley, I put it online, and I didn't really think anything of it. I just put it out to some friends, and a bunch of my friends like shared it on their walls on Facebook, and you know, I felt kind of good about it and everything. And then the next day, I was working some I don't know, some lousy job, whatever I was working at the time. And I checked my email, and I see that my inbox is just full of stuff. It's just going crazy. And I log onto YouTube, and I see that all of a sudden I had 10,000 views on that video. And this was a day. And by the end of that day, more people had seen me play what I just did there than had seen me play piano my whole life. And it was incredible feeling. I later found out it was because Neil Gaiman, the writer, had tweeted it, and he had about a couple million followers on Twitter, and it just went viral from there. It was on blogs, it was on all these different things in social media, and what was really the most interesting thing to me, and when I was doing gigs at that time, I was background music. I was normally playing in a restaurant, I was tucked in a corner somewhere, just playing stuff, and nobody was paying attention. But this time, people were commenting. And people were writing really nice stuff, you know. Then there were some haters that wrote, like, I think my favorite one was somebody wrote, "You're amazing at that piano, too bad you look like such a douchebag." And I was like, all right, point taken, thank you. But this was so exciting that I found that this was a way, and people were writing from all over the country, all over the world. They were writing and they were giving me ideas. They were telling me, like, next time you should cover this, or they were doing things like, oh, I'm a pianist, you should have played it like this, or whatever. But the point was that it was engaging. It was something that I had wanted my whole life. I wanted people just to kind of notice what I was doing and engage with it and think of it as something that was worth talking about. So that became like, that kind of led me down this rabbit hole of learning how social media worked. I found out that by getting this tweet from an influencer, who was Neil Gaiman, that got picked up by all these blogs that kind of, acted as tastemakers on the internet. And they would put these things out. And then everyday people would see a blog entry or an article or something, and they would share it on their Facebook, or they'd tweet it out, or whatever they were doing. Friendster at this time, I don't know. I'm just kidding, nobody used Friendster ever. But, so I started to kind of learn more about social media, and I realized that this was a way that I could actually have an influence on the music industry in like a very subtle way. And I didn't want to change what was working. So I kept making videos kind of in this vein. I did a lot of just really experimental type of things. I did one that was like, I had a guy that, there's this amazing beatboxing flute, and we did a mashup of Notorious B.I.G. and Harry Potter theme song. So, you know, just like stuff like that was kind of like easily shareable, that somebody would click on if they saw it in their news feed. And I would seed it out. I made a list of all the contacts of all the people that wrote about me in these blogs. And then I kind of copied down their email address, and I would just literally send it to everybody every time I did a new video. It probably annoyed them, but it worked. And I started getting, all my stuff started getting shared. People were subscribing to me. People were, you know, I didn't figure out how to monetize it yet, but it was kind of moving in that direction that I realized that I had engagement. And that's something that if you're ever building a brand, or you're starting a campaign, or you're building a career as a musician or something like that, you guys know that engagement is the most important thing in the early days. So I was figuring all that stuff out, still recording, you know, in my basement apartment. Every so often the neighbors would kind of complain, just making a lot of noise, just making a racket. But I was like, no, you don't understand. I got this YouTube thing. And they're like, what are you talking about? What's YouTube? But I just kind of stuck with it, and gradually started inviting my friends to participate in these videos. You know, at this time I had maybe about 5,000 subscribers, and that felt like a pretty good number. You know, I wasn't sure what that meant. You know, there was like a couple times where I thought, like, wait, I have 5,000 subscribers. Am I going to get recognized on the street? The answer is no. You will not get recognized on the street with 5,000 subscribers. But I was really kind of excited about the potential, and I started telling my musician friends about this, most of whom had never really even heard of YouTube or weren't really interested in putting themselves out there, because it wasn't like a known way to build a career at this time. So I was doing a lot of like crowdsourcing for ideas in that day, and I was asking people online about different songs to cover. And around this time, this was maybe 2013, one thing that came up a lot was the song Thrift Shop by Macklemore. And I was doing this kind of like live stream concert, which I still do these things today. I still do a lot of live stream stuff. And somebody requested the song Thrift Shop. And I hadn't heard it before, but I listened to it, and it had this kind of catchy melody in it. It was on like a saxophone. So I just thought about it. I was like kind of playing around with it. I'm like, well, you could definitely make that into a jazz song by, you know, and so forth. So I called some friends over, and I set up a camera in my living room. This is, I had a different apartment at this time, and this is what we did.
Tags, only got $20 in my pocket. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. This is freaking awesome. Walking through the club like, what up, I'm such a big shot. I'm so pumped about the swag from the thrift shop. Ice on the fringe, it's so damn frosty that people like, damn, that's cold ass honky. Rolling hella deep, heading to the mezzanine, dressed on pink, set my gator shoes, those are green, draped in.
So you get the sense of, you know, we took it was a rap song, it was a hip hop song, and we made it into an old jazz song. And at this time, it was a very kind of new concept to a lot of people on YouTube. And the view count exploded. We got 1 million in a week. I think now this has 12 million views. And all of a sudden people were talking, I just called it Postmodern Jukebox, was just the name of the group. You know, I just made up a name. And people started talking about it. And it was such a simple idea in some ways that I think that led people to instantly understand it. They were like, oh, Postmodern Jukebox. They take modern day songs and make them old timey. And from that, everything was born, you know. This kind of concept, I realized, was bigger than me. It wasn't even something that I needed to always be a part of or anything like that. This was kind of like this whole, I didn't really understand what the future was for it, but I knew that I had something there. So we started coming up with different ideas. We made more videos. We incorporated different guests. There was one a couple months later that also went very viral, and it involved a performer that I had seen in New York City, and I saw his act, and I just thought, this guy is brilliant. He's a little bit crazy, but I think that if the internet saw this, they would freak out. And let me see if I can find this video. What do we do? Where'd it go? There we go.
I've never seen a diamond in the flesh.
So there you have it. That is a Puddles, the sad clown with the golden voice, singing Royals. And we did kind of an old-timey, you know, 60s type of James Bond-ish remake of the song Royals. And I just thought to myself, you know, when I saw Puddles act and I saw what he was about, and then I saw that the song Royals was on the charts, I thought, well, the lyrics are about being an outsider. Who better to be like an outsider than a giant 7-foot clown that only sings and is sad all the time? So that went crazy. I mean, I put it on like Reddit, I think, and it hit front page, got a lot of views. And at this time, then I had, you know, 2 mega viral hits that were all over the internet. And that was enough momentum. You know, in the early days of a project, it's all about just getting that initial momentum. You just needed enough to make people care. And from that, everybody started reaching out to me. People kind of knew that, hi, welcome. Just blowing up your spot because you guys were right. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody started reaching out to me. There were like record labels were calling, TV people. I didn't want a record deal. I had heard a lot of bad stories about a record deal. My honest opinion is that for most artists, you shouldn't really even want a record deal. It's not, you know, it's kind of not worth it. But I took a lot of meetings with people, wound up turning down all the labels just because I wanted to do this whole thing my way. And kept just coming up with these different ideas. The song All About That Bass came out. And that was about to hit #1 on the charts. And I was thinking, well, this is such a catchy song. And I have, I know this girl that plays upright bass and sings, and she's amazing. Why not feature her on a video? So we did this one that also, there we go.
Oh, I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, Yeah, it's pretty clear, I ain't no size 2, but I can shake it like I'm supposed to do. I got that boom boom that all the boys chase, and all the right junk in all the right places.
All right, so as you can see, it's a very literal translation of All About That Bass. Back to the days when bass just meant upright bass. And that video actually, you know, helped Kate Davis, who was the amazing singer and bassist. She landed a record deal, and it was everywhere on the internet. And I realized that this whole YouTube thing, it was bigger than I thought. This was actually a platform where I could actually kind of develop talent, send it out into the world, and just help people take notice of things that I thought were amazing, just people that I thought were awesomely talented. And I realized that that became kind of what Postmodern Jukebox was about. It's kind of 2 components. Yes, it is pop music in a time machine. It's the idea of taking a modern day song and putting it back in time. But it's also about celebrating just real talent, real music, you know, amazing musicians that just play everything live. You can see that we record everything live, and even to this day, still setting up 1 camera. It's a nicer camera these days, but 1 camera in my living room. And the idea is we just want to capture that realness, that authenticity, and that's something that a lot of times is missing from music that you hear on the charts today. So I just want to offer this alternative that, that people can listen to and enjoy. We kept making videos and doing all this stuff. I wound up moving to LA. You know, it's a cliche, but everybody does it. I started meeting some people out there, making more videos, and then we started touring because we wanted to make this happen in real life. And I had an idea for a show that was based on, in a weird way, what my grandmother used to love. My grandmother used to watch the Lawrence Welk Show, which was a show in America. And it was like kind of like the cheesiest variety show in the world, but there was something that was very oddly addicted about it. You know, it was this. It presented all these different acts and everything, and there was some stuff, you know, interspliced in between. It was just entertainment, but just classic entertainment. So I wanted to bring back this sense of classic entertainment, mixed with a little bit of like old Hollywood, a little bit of like the Rat Pack aesthetic, and a little bit of twerking, because, you know, why not? Why not some twerking? And came up with this idea for the stage show. And I remember going to our very first PMJ concert, and it was in Toronto. And we had taken a van, kind of like a big van up there. And I remember being nervous and wondering if anybody would show up, because at this point I had only seen comments and I had seen YouTube views and stuff, but I never had met actual PMJ fans. And the curtain opens and we see about 300 people. It's a full house. It's a sold out show, and everybody's dressed up, dressed vintage, and everybody knows everything about us. And that's, you know, when it really hit me, that's when it all became real. I was like, this is something that's like a movement. This is something that I didn't even really, it wasn't even something that I did. It wasn't even, I didn't tell people to dress up, but this was something that people wanted. People wanted to have this sense of escapism and go back to a classic era with songs that they recognized. So that was a breakthrough. I think the first gig we did in London, where was it? Where did we play? Oh, it's gonna haunt me. I'll have to look it up later. But we played a show in London. London was an amazing audience. I remember thinking, like, wow, our UK audiences are even like rowdier than our American audiences. This is, but in a good way, and it was super fun. So yeah, we started touring pretty consistently, and I wound up just finding more talent, just more talented people that I really believed in, that I thought should be stars. And we were on tour in Europe. And on a day off in Switzerland, we recorded a version of there was a PMJ video. We had done a version of Creep before on the channel, and it was a really fantastic video with a really fantastic singer named Karen Marie. And we were doing it in the show on tour, and with a singer named Haley Reinhart. And on our day off, I just decided we would get a recording studio and go to somewhere in Switzerland and record this video of what we were doing. And this was a one-take video.
Couldn't look you in the eye. You're just like an angel. Your skin makes me cry. You float like a feather, and I'm beautiful.
I'm gonna fast forward where it gets crazy.
Whatever makes you happy.
So performances like that, that's what Postmodern Jukebox is really all about. You know, just channeling all those just classic performances from back in time. And this video went on to be viewed 29, almost 30 million times. And it was just recorded on a day off. We were super tired from tour. We woke up at like 9:30 in the morning to go into a recording studio. Haley was worried about her voice because it was, you know, her day off. She had been singing the whole week. And we recorded that first take, and she was like, I don't know, I don't think that was good enough. And I'm like, trust me, it was great. It's more than good enough. And of course, it went super viral. You know, Haley wound up landing like a major part in a really popular commercial and recording Can't Help Falling in Love, which is now a gold record. And it was so rewarding for me to see that I could kind of help people's career that I believed in, and use this platform for really whatever I wanted it to be. You know, again, I have my own record label. It's just me. And there's no real rules to what I have to do. Nobody has to tell me what to do. I have complete freedom. And I'm getting to do my passion, which is such a amazing thing. And I'm so grateful for that. So to kind of wrap up with the story of Postmodern Jukebox, we continued touring. We eventually got the call to play Radio City Music Hall, which was a dream of mine. when I was a kid and I was walking through New York City at night and see all the lights everywhere, and you'd see Radio City Music Hall, and you just think like, wow, you know, these are acts that really made it. And it wasn't even on my radar. I never thought it was possible when I was a kid. And let alone doing like an original project that was something kind of crazy that also was doing all this jazz stuff that, you know, my friends weren't even really into. It was really a dream come true. I remember just walking on that stage and being at kind of a loss for words, because you never know how you're going to react when you get an opportunity like that. And just like looking out and seeing all these people who you know, might have been strangers to me in some way, but there was kind of a sense of community where it's like they got me and I got them. And it was a really magical thing. And that's what this whole Postmodern Jukebox thing has been about. It's been this incredible community of not just the artists, but also the fans, creative people that have lended their talents to, you know, building this whole alternate universe of popular songs. So I'm going to close with a video that is just kind of ridiculous. It's the song Ice Ice Baby, and it's recorded at, this is my current living room in Los Angeles, and it's recorded, we ordered an ice sculpture of Vanilla Ice circa 1990. And this is Aubrey Logan, who is just an amazing, amazing talent.
All right, stop, collaborate and listen. Ice is back with my brand new invention. Something grabs a hold of me tight and flow like a harpoon daily and nightly. Will it ever stop? No, I don't know. Turn out the lights and I'll blow to the extreme. I rock a mic like a vandal, light up a stage and wax a chump like a candle. Dance, rush the speaker that booms. I'm killing your brain like a poisonous mushroom deadly. When I play, I don't turn to anything less than the best is a felony. Love it or leave it. You better gain weight. You better hit the bullseye. The kid don't play. And if there was a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Check out the hook while my DJ revolves it. Ice, ice, baby. Vanilla ice, ice, baby. Vanilla ice, ice, baby. Vanilla ice, ice, baby.
There you go. And you can watch that on your own time. Cool. Guys, thank you so much. It's time for questions, right? We're going to do some questions? Let's do some questions. What's this guy? Is this a recorder?
Yeah.
Oh, a recorder. Okay. All right, nice. I get to sit down? All right.
So I'm conscious to let the audience ask as many questions as possible. So really, I'm only going to stick with one question before I open up.
Okay.
And that is, you've talked about everything that you've done so far and exactly how you started out. And my question would be, what is next? What is your bigger plan? You mentioned that you're proud of the fact that you set up so many other musicians who have gone on and stuff. What do you personally want to go on to achieve?
Well, there's so much that can still be done. And one thing that I learned early on from touring is the world is a big place, and we've toured 4 continents so far, but there's still a lot that we haven't been to South America, we haven't been to Africa, we haven't been to so many places. Fortunately, the kind of setup of Postmodern Jukebox, you know, it's not a band, it's not like Blue Man Group, it's kind of like somewhere, it's its own type of entertainment. And we have such an amazing roster of talent and so many people that we want to get on the road, that we're able to do things like, for instance, we have 2 shows going on at the same time. I believe that tomorrow we're at Cambridge and we're also at, I don't know, Poland, Germany, somewhere, I don't know. I should know these things, but clearly I don't. So we have 2 casts that are out on the road for the very first time. And you know, we've done this kind of thing in the past before where I had a residency somewhere and then we'd have musicians there and we'd also have a touring group and everything. But this really just highlights the specialness of what this is and the idea that there's nothing stopping us from just getting all the world's most talented performers and putting on these shows everywhere in every city so that people can go back in time and experience Postmodern Jukebox all the time. And that's something that's really exciting to me. The ability to impact so many musicians' lives and also fans' lives too.
Actually, I lied. I'm going to ask one more question.
Sure, go for it.
And that is like, you've had quite a unique entrance into music. Like New York jazz scene is the most difficult, I think, of any sort of music genre to break into. And whether there's aspiring jazz musicians out there or just aspiring musicians in general, given your sort of like unique perspective, what advice would you impart to them, and how would they make it as a musician?
Well, I'd say it's important to find mentors that encourage you to find your own voice. And that was something that was a frustration of mine with some of the teachers that I encountered in school. And jazz seemed to have a lot of dogma around it, where there was like kind of an understanding that like, oh, this is jazz, but this is not. And it's kind of dangerous to think in those ways. When you think of genre in general, I don't like to think in these absolutist terms. You know, genre is really, it's kind of like a continuum. And it's all very kind of arbitrary what the distinctions are. So if somebody's telling you like, don't play that because that's not in jazz vocabulary, then, you know, tell them to, you know, anyway. It's about, the most important thing is that you find your own voice, and that's truly what jazz is about. Jazz was always about finding your own unique voice, and everybody that came through that made great developments in jazz, they had people telling them that, you know, they had critics saying that what they were doing is wrong. And this doesn't go just for jazz, this is music in general. You think of all the backlash that Elvis got and the Beatles and, you know, Ray Charles and, you know, all these guys, they were doing things, they pushed the envelope, and you should always be pushing the envelope, and that's how you're gonna get, you know, noticed, because there's a lot of people that play jazz and that play fantastic. You just want to find something that you can make your own.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, we'll now, I promise, open up to the audience. We'll have about 10-15 minutes of questions, and then Scott has kindly agreed to end on a performance element, so look forward to that. So if we start...
I'll be taking my pants off again, just like
if we start...
right here? Right here?
Yeah.
Hi.
So if you just wait for the microphone. And then,
okay, oh, we have a microphone, yes.
It's really awesome to hear you speak.
Hi, YouTube.
Creep is my favorite, so I was really happy that you talked about it. I have a question. It's sort of very specific to one of your videos. I believe it was Stacy's mom, where one of the musicians, it is my favorite video because it was so hilarious. One of the musicians opened a window like halfway through the video and climbed through it and then started playing a completely different instrument.
That was, that was
me and
Love
my
Yourself,
friends,
right? Love Yourself?
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah,
Let me,
sorry.
actually, I want to show that clip because that is, I
so
love that video
funny.
too. And I'm going to tell you the backstory about that.
Yeah, my friends and I have always wondered what happened, so to lead to that. Thank you.
We were making this video. It was a Justin Bieber song, and we were doing kind of a 1920s version of it. And about midway through, we were thinking like, well, this is in the house that I was renting. There was like this window you could see, and we kind of rigged it with something. I was like, wouldn't it be funny? We always had Jacob, who is our clarinetist and saxophone player. We'd always have him do crazy stunts, just like riding a scooter or whatever, some kind of weird stuff. And I was thinking, well, what if he jumped out of the window and then retrieved a tuba and brought it in, and Lamar started playing the tuba in the middle of the song, and it becomes like a New Orleans parade. And he was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And we wound up practicing it several times, and he completely just messed up my rose bushes outside. Like, they were just gone. And it was, well, not mine, it was the house I was renting. Whoops, sorry, guys. But we had to practice it several times, but when we got it right, it was so worth it. And then this is what happened.
But I've been stuck caught up in my job. I didn't see what's going on, but now I know I'm better sleeping on my own. 'Cause if you like the way you looked in my
I like the trumpet player's reaction because he's like looking for a bit, and then he's like, okay, I'm over it.
And if you think that I'm still holding on to something, you should go and love yourself. Hey,
There we go, without missing a beat. Yeah, that was a good one. Thank you for reminding me of that one. That was like, forgot about that one.
Okay, great, thank you for your question. If we go...
You, sir.
Yeah. If you wait for the microphone, thank you.
Thanks. Looking around me, I think I'm unique in remembering the 80s. And I love your interpretation of the music from that era. My question is whether you ever get any response from the original artists?
We do, quite a bit, actually. We've heard from everybody, from Adam Levine, Gwen Stefani, Lil Wayne, Celine Dion, Nickelback. Geez, it goes on. Yeah, pretty constantly we're hearing from the original artists, and they love it. They tweet their support and stuff. There's been a couple of original artists that we haven't worked out details yet, but want to appear in a video of their own song. So that's going to be kind of an exciting thing. So yeah, it's cool to have them as part of this conversation, even though I see this as being kind of like an anti-mainstream project in a sense that it exists kind of outside the whole, top 40 radio. But it's cool to have that crossover of their world and our world.
Great, thank you. If we go to in the corner there.
So what's your process, basically? Like, how do you choose which songs to do? How do you sit down with them, decide what style you're going to do them in? So what's the sort of start to finish process of having nothing to having something, like that?
Okay, that's a good question. And it's one that I get quite a bit. In general, I want to pick songs that are familiar to a lot of people, because that's how you get that postmodern jukebox effect of them recognizing this song on some level, but hearing it in a completely different sense. And my goal is to really take a song, imagine it in a different historical context so that it almost has a different meaning altogether. To give an example, and I think I have this kind of queued up too. This wasn't planned, but that was a good question because it led me into something I didn't get to. We took the song Sweet Child of Mine. Everybody knows that song. Guns N' Roses hit, massive hit in the 80s. You look at the lyrics and it's a blues song. It just follows this kind of verse and then refrain, the refrain being Sweet Child of Mine, So I thought of, instead of, taking, the style that it's normally played in, I thought of putting it in kind of an old blues context, where it's like. And then from there, I kind of made a rough demo, and I found a singer that kind of exemplifies 1920s blues. She has this Bessie Smith type of voice. She actually played Bessie Smith in like a show, and I think, and maybe she was in that, I think they did a movie of her too. Fantastic singer named Mickey Braden, and I worked with her on a video game. I did music for BioShock Infinite, and she was one of the singers that I worked with. So I called her up, and I said that I wanted to remake Sweet Child of Mine, but do it as Bessie Smith would have done it in the 1920s. And from there, I worked it out with her. We kind of, I wrote an arrangement. We tried it out. We made some changes and everything as needed. I invited some musicians in, and then we made a video, which. So there you go. So it's it kind of takes on a different meaning when it's sung like that. It is almost like Sweet Child of Mine. It could be very literal. It could be like a mother singing about her child in 1920s New Orleans or something. So yeah, so that's kind of, that's a good question. That's kind of the process that I'm dealing with. And it happens on pretty much on all the songs. I'm thinking like, well, what's the most interesting genre that would work given these lyrics? I use song lyrics a lot. I look at the lyrics a lot more than probably people would assume. But so I know the words to all these songs. I know every single Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber, all those guys.
Great, we'll have one more. We come to the front here. Yeah.
That's you.
Hi. So in one of your previous answers, you spoke about how some original artists were thinking about collaborating with you in one of your new YouTube videos. And I just wondered if you could choose any original artist to collaborate with in one of your Postmodern Jukebox takes on one of their own songs, and you could pick anybody, who would you choose?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, part of me thinks that it might be the most interesting thing would be to take somebody that's not really known for their singing, but have them perform a video with us and just knock it out of the park. I just think that would be kind of cool. But in terms of artists that are contemporary, that would be amazing to perform with, somebody like Bruno Mars, I think definitely comes to mind as being, he's the one that is right now, we never even cover his songs because they're already throwback and retro and like perfect, you know? They're already like PMJ'd. So he really brings back the tradition of being a great performer and a great entertainer. So I'd say Bruno Mars would be at the top of my list for that.
Great. That's all we have time for questions.
Okay.
So if firstly we just have a huge round of applause. Thank you so much for coming.